In case you were wondering to yourself, well, this film came out in 2011, so it probably has audio description, right? You would be wrong. Um, in keeping in keeping with their grand tradition of not offering audio description for any of the films prior to the fifth film that was released last year, this is Scream 4, which I watched on Paramount Plus without audio description, just like the first three. Um, wow, they have made absolutely no attempt at Paramount to try to bring this franchise together so that people can actually go back and watch. We're in a completely different generation. The first film came out in 1995, and they're making new editions. Like the newest one is 2023. So it's entirely possible that you're going to pick up new people, and they might even be blind, and they might want to go back and see, like, where did this all begin? Who are these people? Who the fuck is Gail Weathers? But they can't do that because there's no audio description on any of these fucking four first movies. So, Paramount Plus, this is my middle finger. This is what I'm giving you. This is my grade for the first four films. That's what you get. That's my grade for the service, or lack thereof, on not offering an audio description for an entire series for which they continue to make movies for. Like, we'll just start with a fifth film. That'll be fine. I know it's weird because we have legacy characters, but nah, fuck it. Yeah. So apparently they don't want new fans. We just have to follow Melissa Barrera and her friends because that's our generation, I guess. Fun fact, I was thinking that when I was watching this film, which came out in 2011, I did the math. Scream came out in, 1995? 1995. I'm going to go 95. Might have been 96. And this one was 2011. And spoiler alert, but for anybody who hasn't seen Scream 5, you know who Melissa Barrera is, and who she's related to. Which means, in the actual timeline, first of all, she's old as shit. But secondly, so I don't know, there must be a huge gap between her and her younger sister, but she's very much, she literally could be in this film, is what I'm trying to say. Literally, she was attending high school at the time. Like, I don't know what grade, but she was definitely in high school during this film. So, this film was released in 2011. This is where we got the cool new cast. I really loved this film. This film introduced a lot of really interesting characters, and the twist works. If you haven't seen the film, I'm not going to ruin it. If you haven't seen this film, I'm not going to tell you who the killer is, because the twist works. However, it's going to be really hard for you to enjoy the rest of it because, again, it doesn't have audio description. But if you haven't seen Scream 4, it was really just, it made up a lot for a lot of the problems that Scream 3 had. Even though Scream 3 isn't terrible, it just didn't quite work perfectly. This one sees sort of the new class. This is like Scream the new class. You've got Emma Roberts. You've got Hayden Panettiere. You've got Rory Culkin. You've got just a bunch of people. Actually, the opening scene is pretty cool. The way that they do the opening kill in this is I gotta say, it's very interesting, very funny, and very meta, and very on point. And totally different from how they've done the opening in any other Scream franchise. Scream, well, I can't say 6 for sure, but I kind of heard what the opening is in 6, so I'm gonna go ahead and say it's different than all the other Screams. So the opening sequence here is actually really inventive and cool, and it's still directed by Wes Craven, by the way, before he passed away. So, and written by Kevin Williamson. So you get that vibe throughout the whole film. And it's re-energized. It's got a whole different energy to it, and it's referencing all of the films that have happened since Scream 3. All of the horror remakes that were happening, and torture porn. There's a direct commentary towards films like Saw, and how those have affected the horror genre. And they talk about the rules and how the rules have totally changed. And there's a big question about whether or not that matters. So there's definitely a character that plays by the rules. I guess I'll go ahead and say, for those who have seen Scream 6, this is the reason why you need to be able... This is why Scream 4 needs to have audio description, because for anybody who didn't know where Kirby came from, she came from Scream 4. And if you watch Scream 4, you would not know that she survived. The fun fact is that I totally remember the scene, because I've seen this film a bunch of times, and I remember that there's a scene while Jill's in her like montage of being rescued and everything, that you can hear them, like they put in a guy like in post-production that just is like, we found another one. It's just like off in the distance, and I couldn't hear him this time. And I was like, I'm always able to hear him, because I was trying to find out exactly when it is. And it's all sort of like towards the end of the film when they're I guess getting the last the people, to the hospital or whatever. But they couldn't like put in more dialogue than that, so that's why they don't bring her up for the rest of the film. But they just put like a line of dialogue in there, because Kirby's death in this just... It did so well. It did so poorly at test screenings. So poorly at test screenings from everything that I read. I mean, like, to the point, like, where it angered the people that they were really concerned about it. So they made the change to save Kirby, because she was such a well-liked character in the film and technically played by the rules. So... yeah, and people who are like, well, it screams, if you play by the rules, then you live. So, yeah. So that was the most deflating thing about this. I mean, it's a cool reveal, but if you're trying to figure out who the killer is, she's the one that gets the answer, unfortunately. But at the same time, she absolutely deserved to live. So I'm glad that she's back for Scream 6, and I can't wait to see her again in the franchise. I was hoping she'd be back for Scream 5, but she's a cool character. She's really smart, and you get that vibe from her the whole film. So... Plus, somebody deserves to live from this fucking series. Like, you can't just introduce a ton of new people and then just kill all of them. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not fun. It's not fun for me. Is that fun for you? I don't think it's fun for anybody. And by the way, I'm sorry, but Marley Shelton being, like, the one new character introduced and surviving into the next film doesn't count. The fact that one of the new cops is like, oh, I made it to the next film, guys. I'm Deputy Hicks. Like, no. Sorry. It's a fun film. I totally forgot Alison Brie was in this. Totally forgot Alison Brie was in this. But as soon as I heard Alison Brie's voice, I was like, I forgot she was in this. She must not be in this for very long. That was my immediate reaction. Like, she must barely be in this. Okay, well, I'll wait for her to die. It's very interesting how the film played out, and knowing the killers, I always find myself like looking for, like, and trying to figure out, like, okay, so who was where when, who was doing what, where, when, why, who, trying to tie it all together to make sure it works. And this one works. I mean, I can see where everything was. where everything happened. It's well structured, and I think at least one of the killers is a surprise. I think one of the killers is an absolute surprise, and probably one of the best surprises. So, whereas I looked back on some of the other films that I've seen recently, and I'm like, not really. I mean, to be totally honest, like the first Scream, Billy and Stu are kind of creepy. The second film, Mickey is pretty aggressively, obviously a killer. I mean, there are people in these films that are, you're like, and then when you really look at Laurie Metcalf, you're like, why is Laurie Metcalf here? So, I mean, there are times where you're like, oh, but this one probably has the biggest surprise where I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I didn't see that coming. But the audio description is, oh, you're going to miss out on so much. So much. Just the kills and how people die and when they die and who jumps out and where Ghostface is. There's a really great, well played out scene. It's done so well. And it has the girls, it's got, I think Jill and Kirby are in Jill's house, and they look across because they live next door to this other girl, Olivia. And that whole sequence is spectacular. It's well done, but it requires you to be able to see what's going on. Without audio description, that scene does not work. That whole sequence. So, it's a horror film without audio description. I don't know what else to say. I'm disappointed. I've seen this film a ton of times, so for me, I was pulling up the visuals from Recall, in certain scenes, and I could remember, and I was like, okay, well, I remember this happens. It was funny because the only thing I didn't remember was Alison Brie. I was like, Alison Brie's in this? Otherwise, I remembered everything else. I was like, this happens here. That's how that person dies. Oh, this is where this person dies. I went through every film. I was like, bam, 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 bam. I was like, this person dies next. This person dies next. This person. And I totally forgot about Alison Brie. So, and I love Alison Brie, and I can't believe I forgot she was in this film. So, that's my mea culpa. But, yeah, so I guess there's 2 grades for this. I would say, for blind and visually impaired viewers, this is unwatchable. However, I love Scream 4. I used to have the poster of it up in my house, from back in the day. And, so I'm going to give Scream 4 an A. No minus on that one. I thought they did a great job of introducing a cast. And yes, there's a little bit of a feeling that you're able to narrow it down to one of these characters, but you still never really know how many there are. That's the thing about the Scream movies, is because 3 did what it did, by having only one killer, it opened up future films to also have potentially only one killer. So you never really know if there are 2 or 1 or 3, like which way are they going with it. So even though some characters may look a little bit more obvious than others, one of the killers I thought was a solid reveal. And they did a really good job of making them look not like a killer for the whole film, which is really good. Anyway, if you can find it with audio description, you should watch it. Unfortunately, Paramount Plus doesn't want you to watch it there. They prefer if you go fuck off. So, and find your audio description elsewhere. Apparently, I don't know. I mean, that's the message I get whenever they make things that are inaccessible. It sounds, I can hear a voice going, fuck off, coming out of my Roku, my little streaming thing over there. But Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Our website, macmovieguy.com. You can go to the audio description project, where you can look up films that have audio description. If you want to watch one with audio description, that's where they have the list. You can go to theadna.org and look up some narrators. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at macmovieguy. And you can wait for me to review something else, because I will. And I'm gonna watch Scream 5 again. So, and then hopefully Scream 6 will hit Paramount Plus just in time. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you on the other side.